Jelani, on this trust point, and like, what do we do about the fact that people don't believe facts? Apparently, you teach at the school. What are your students saying about this as they're about to go into journalism?
I think it's been a source of consternation for students who are trying to say, if we are actually doing, really rigorous work, and people are just dismissing it, how in fact do we get a point across? I think that it was interesting what David Farenholt did on his reporting about the charities and the charitable donations, where like in elementary school, we were doing long division and they tell you to show your work, where he's literally showing what he did. I called these people, I spoke to these people, and so on. I don't know if that works, if that's scalable, but I think that we have to do that kind of thing to say, this is something that is verifiable, and this is something that we can actually point to. This is how we've drawn the conclusions that we've drawn. And we also, kind of not to, I guess, plug ourselves, we're actually teaching students social science techniques about how to bolster the way that they're approaching, facts and information, so they're more easily able to defend, the research conclusions and the journalistic conclusions they come to.
We were talking about where we sit in the sort of spectrum of history. You wrote a piece for The New Yorker talking about the parallels between Trump and Joe McCarthy.
So I think that it's important. First off, I do want to say one thing, which is that I think sloppy reporting is its own indictment. However, Breitbart released the edited video of Shirley Sherrod. That wasn't sloppy, that was intentionally misleading. And so there's a difference. No one's going to defend someone not doing their job well, as opposed to someone actively creating something that's supposed to be kind of propagandistic or shock value or whatever the purpose of that was. That was an outright lie. But the other part of it, I think, is in terms of talking about the administration, when we've talked about being in uncharted territory, I think that's probably true for the executive branch, but the closest analogy I saw fairly early on, was actually to Joe McCarthy. And, McCarthy and Trump had the kind of common tie with Roy Cohn. But one of the things that as a graduate student, I worked with a biographer, David Oshinsky, who had written a biography of Joe McCarthy. And I remember him doing this really kind of in-depth examination of McCarthy's relationship to the media. And so what McCarthy actually set out to do was kind of game objective reporting, which is that people were reporting both sides of the story as if they were kind of automatically equivalent. And he used that to his advantage. And he just would say things that were not true, kind of outrageously so. And his strategy was to kind of lie exponentially while people fact-checked arithmetically. And so he's telling one lie, and you try to track that down, but he's told two more, and by the time you get to the second lie, he's on to four. And so much of what you were hearing was still going to be, what McCarthy wanted to get out. And interestingly, one of the things that reporters, and McCarthy had a kind of much more hostile relationship. He actually punched a reporter in the face in a coat room at a supper club somewhere. But he also kind of sparked this recognition among media in the 1950s, print media as well, obviously broadcast as well. But people began to fact check within stories, kind of parenthetically saying McCarthy has said this is not true. And it was interesting to see that begin to happen. I saw that happen on CNN, where sometimes Trump would say something and then there'd be a parenthetical, actually this didn't happen. And the New York Times began doing that as well. You saw that kind of recognition, and it was almost like history repeating itself, of people recognizing that the same tactics had been used over and again, and with a shocking degree of effectiveness the second time around, just as it had been early on with McCarthy.